Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started, everybody. Welcome to the Friday Forum from Pathstone Enterprise Center. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is a great way to kind of wrap up your week as entrepreneurs, leaders, nonprofit founders, wherever you are in small business, as a freelancer or entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being with us. And we have a great presenter today, a great speaker, and I will introduce her in just a moment. But first, I want to run through a couple of announcements. Beyond Profit, we are right in the middle of that, right in the meat of Beyond Profit. So hang out with us if you're a part of that, if you registered and everything. If you're part of the Beyond Profit cohort, Tuesday, 5:30 to 7, we're going to be talking about who's on the nonprofit team, making sure that you're building that team to be successful in the long term. So join us 5:30 to 7, you Beyond Profit folks, join us. Also, She Means Business launches in just over a month on March 30th. So make sure you're registering for that. If you're a woman looking to get into entrepreneurship or starting your own business, or maybe you are an entrepreneur, you are a business owner, and you want kind of a refresher course on how to start, how to grow, how to run, how to be more efficient, how to define your market, all those things. We have a 13-week course ready for you, 26 classes. You're going to walk out there with a lot of information, as well as a business plan, an elevator pitch, and just a ton of intangible and tangible skills when we graduate from that class. So that starts March 30th. Jahida will drop the link in the chat so you guys can register for that. We'll get that in the chat here shortly. So make sure you keep that in mind. Today, we are going to talk about making money. We're going to make sure you are charging what you're worth, how you're charging, things like invoicing, and making sure that your clients are sticking to what you have agreed to in terms of scope of the work you're doing. So, and I could think of nobody better than Marie Rachelle, who is here today. She is a freelancer and a freelancer advocate. She's a coach for aspiring freelancers, and she is newer to the Pathstone family, but she has hit the ground running, and she is a juggernaut and just a wealth of knowledge. So Marie, I'm going to hand it over to you. They are yours, and I know they're all paying attention and they're ready. Guys, if you want to, when you're ready, engage with us through the chat. You can even come off mute and ask questions. We want to have this as a discussion. So you don't have to save your questions till the end. Feel free to put them in the chat, or you can even raise your hand or come off mute, whatever you're comfortable with. But Marie is ready to answer those questions, and I'm going to let her go ahead and start. Marie?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everyone, I have a couple of rules, really just one big rule. Don't say sorry. So, if you've got background noise, or if you've got to hop off, hop on, if you want to interrupt with a question, Zoom meetings are hard. So naturally interruptions are going to happen. So please, but if I'm talking, interrupt, there's no hand raise. There is a couple hand raising features, but I'd rather have you just interrupt me and continue the conversation. But again, if you come off mute and there's background sounds, or you got to do something, don't say sorry. That's my biggest thing on these, which I'm guilty of. So we're not all perfect. I just, try to aim towards that, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. We've got, a limited amount of time today. So I want to make sure you all get to answer or ask your questions, and I can respond to them for you. So Adam wanted me to make the theme and the highlight of this entire thing to be, I'm just putting this back on gallery view. I don't like looking at my face. The theme is to be confident. So this whole thing, yes, we're talking about charging what you're worth, value-based pricing. We want to be confident, and we need to be confident in what we're offering and then what we're charging. And just as a few examples, I had a friend who was hiring for a freelance role, and she was mentioning that and I'm just saying, men, women, but along the lines of the She Means Business. I know we have a good mix in here, but the male or, male-oriented people were rating 50%, or no, not 50% higher, 2 times higher than any of the females. So it's just, that is just one component, one example that I kind of wanted to kick this off with, is that, I've been freelancing for over 8 years. I started off as a social media manager, and then within the pandemic moved into coaching, as Adam said, and I'm also opening a co-working space. But with these things that are happening for me, I started to learn my value. And there's another point of this, with imposter syndrome. I don't know if any of you have heard of it or are facing it or have defeated it. If you have, then seriously, kudos to you, because it's very difficult. I am blessed to say that I have defeated imposter syndrome. And it's not just because, I feel like, oh, I'm the best, I'm the greatest. It's not that. It's, if I want to be successful, because I need to be successful for myself and the purpose that I'm serving, that I can't have those negative thoughts. I can't think that I'm not good enough. I can't think that I'm not charging enough, or, charging half what I think I should be earning. So I kind of just wanted to lead with that. And again, as Adam said, put anything in the comments. I will react to what you say. I do a lot of live things like this, so I'm super comfortable and familiar with it. But charging what you're worth, value-based pricing, rule number 1, be confident. And rule number 2, I guess, is don't say sorry. You don't have to say sorry. You don't have to apologize who you are. So setting rates, kind of going straight into the nitty gritty of this, again, because of time, I have a little worksheet of like how to set your rates. So I wanted to go over that with you, and I thought I had it pulled up and I don't. So give me 1 second. But if anyone had anything to say in response to what I've kind of overviewed, please feel free to chime in while I do this. I'm just looking for it. 1 second. I'm sorry.
Hi, Marie. This is Melanie, or Dr. Silas is on there. Thank you so much for starting and sharing off with your story. I think that many of us have been plagued with the imposter syndrome. I know that I have. I've been in education for over 25 years. I have a PhD and I still struggle with the imposter syndrome. And I would love to know, like, some of the things, whether it was self-affirmations or, just constantly reminding yourself, or self-talk, that reminding yourself of your worth and your value, and then quantifying your experience with your education, because that's where I kind of get stuck sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, so not to talk too much about me, but just to give an example, I started freelancing 8 years ago, hosted Buffalo's first freelance business week, and then my life really started to unfold. So I was approached by an investor to open Hamburg's first co-working space. I live down here in Hamburg, New York. And at first I'm like, why is she coming to me? She really believes in me. She wants to back me. She wants to do these things and open this, as a partnership. And I'll give you the short version, but I didn't believe it. I'm like, this feels too good to be true. Like, it just didn't feel right. And then as things went along and we purchased a building and I opened our online community, I'm like, I have to do this. I'm already in it, and if I don't do it, I'm going to fail. So I need to kick this, whatever, negative thought attitude is, to the curb, or, it's just not going to happen. And it's not just about me. It's about the community that I'm serving. It's about my clients. It's about building something better for them. So if those people who are reaching out to you and working with you feel confident enough to choose you, then I believe that it's up to us to show up that way. I hope that helps. I don't want to be too cheesy either, but it's like,
no,
that's
yes,
really,
thank you.
Okay. I was like, that's really what it comes down to. Okay. So, and then as far as like affirmations, and again, Adam, we could put this on the docket for the next time, how to defeat imposter syndrome. Just journal. I don't know about you guys, but I journal, I manifest, I write down my goals, no matter how big or how small. And, I do vision boards every year. There's a lot of little different things you can do every day, to help yourself kind of defeat that and just feel like you're the best version of who you can be. Even if it's as simple as a daily routine that you do every morning. Like, I drink my tea and I check my emails, I relax, I make a full breakfast. And then I'm like, okay, I feel full. Not physically, but I feel full. So now I can serve everyone else. So that's like a really big thing for me. But going into the rates, so as far as being confident in setting up your rates, so I do want questions while I talk about this, because this is pretty generalized. And I did read over what everyone does, but if you're, at the beginning or whatnot, or reevaluating your rates, this should be a good place to start. So knowing your services, knowing what you offer, or carefully planning what you think you might offer. When I work with aspiring freelancers or solopreneurs, we come up with a broad net of things that they could do for their clients, and I also have them make a list of their achievements, what they've achieved, what they've done, their value and their experience and where they've come from, because a lot of the times you forget, I forget that I opened a nail salon in Naples in 2016. I forget that, there's a whole list of things that I forget about, but I'm forgetting now. But I forget that I've done these very awesome, successful things, and it's important to have a list. I have it, I have it. Let me pull it up really quick. Things I've done. Like I'll just do random things. So I fundraised over $100,000 with a committee, of course, for a not-for-profit when I lived in Florida. I opened the nail salon. I went full-time freelance in 19, organized Buffalo's first freelance business week. I won an award for that. And then I list, the podcasts I've been on, the news articles that they've written on me. And it's like, okay, those are the things that I've done and that have been rewarded to me out of the work that I've done. And I cannot forget that that's happened. I received a proclamation from the mayor of Buffalo, so it's those types of things that you may think, if you are defeating imposter syndrome, that you're bragging, but you're not bragging. You're just reminding yourself on how awesome you are. And you need to do that before I think you create any services or prices for yourself. So going into from that little TED talk into knowing your services, make that list of services, make the list of things that you could offer, who you're looking to serve. And, as part of a business plan, I always preach that it's important to find your niche. It's a huge trend right now. People are niching down. They say, well, why do you only work with aspiring freelancers? I'm like, I can work with others, but aspiring freelancers is really where I thrive and who I want to help. And, if there's a freelancer who wants to level up their business, of course I can help work with them. But at the same time, I know the very specific area of who I want to serve. So when you're all thinking about your businesses, think about, okay, you serve this group. How could you maybe make it a little bit smaller? Because that's where your value, as your niche gets down or gets smaller, your value grows larger. So I hope that makes sense too. So knowing your services, so then knowing who you're serving and then figuring out what you're doing. I will use social media as an example. I did see someone else in here does offer social media. I see a few creatives in here. So hopefully where I go with this as an example isn't too far out. But for, say, example, social media marketing, you could offer social media content creation. You can do content writing, email marketing. Maybe you have photography skills and you want to add, a photography package in with creating that content. Having those services all listed out. And then deciding an hourly rate. I don't always love charging an hourly rate. Honestly, none of us, I don't think, do, because then it's kind of putting $1 to the hour of your time, which is kind of backwards to what I think we're talking about here today. But you do have to have an hourly rate. It's an easier way to kind of set up your package pricing and things of that nature. There's a few ways you can go about it. I work with this one rule and it always worked well for me. So if you ever hear of like salary.com or anything like that, they have like little quizzes that you can go through and it'll tell you, like, based on your background or your history or your location, which is kind of relevant these days, not so much because you can work remote, but I'd pick, the closest big city. So Buffalo, I usually don't pick Buffalo. I'll pick a city like New York, because just because we live in Buffalo, have a lower cost of living, doesn't mean that we should have lower rates, for our cost of living if we're serving people in bigger cities, say Chicago, New York, Austin, Miami, things like that. So I pick New York. That's just a personal preference. Of course, you could pick Buffalo and kind of just start from there. So researching an annual salary for a role, say that or maybe go off a role you had in the past or a role that you would apply for now. That's what I look at. So if I put myself, say, in a marketing director role, right? So say I'm just going to do, or whatever, that it's like $100,000 a year. If that's what, it comes about. I move the decimal. That's what I call this. I call it move the decimal. So if it's $100,000 a year, I move the decimal and I'm like, okay, that's $100 an hour or 120, like whatever you want to make it. But if you also believe in manifestation, say you want to earn, 120,000, 150, 200, something like that, then you charge the 120, charge 150, 180, whatever works for you. So that's how I come up with a general hourly rate typically. And then you create packages off of that, going back to your services and looking at them and saying, okay, these are all the things that I can do and that you can do well, because again, you've got that list of accomplishments backing you up, telling you that you are capable of doing these things. Or maybe you have your past work that you can look at, past client testimonials, things of that nature, creating packages. So you go, what out of all of these things that I do, I'm doing my example on my table, you can't see that. What of all these things that you can do you enjoy doing the most? One, and then two, which ones are the most valuable to that niche that you're deciding that you want to serve? So then I typically advise having 3 main areas of focus. So when I did social media, I did social media, so the copy, content creation, so creating the posts, content writing, so blogs, and I did email marketing. Those were the 3 things that I prided myself on doing. Within that was some analytics, and that was usually like an add-on service. But I usually pick those 3 things, and then you have like the complementary services that go along with those things. And then I would write down what each package would look like. So depending on, and please chime in if you want me to use a specific example, like I will help someone do their pricing right now if that's what they want. So please ask. I would write down those packages and say there's an introductory package that was, on the lower end, and there's the middle one that's more common that probably everybody could use, and then there's the higher one for that client that's like all in. They're like, I want you to do everything for me, and I'll do whatever it takes. I see the value in that budget, like I'm going to do that. So like I always say to have a few options for your prices. And I could talk about why packages are the best way to go for a long time. But if you trust me, I'm just going to say go with packages. So creating your packages, you'll use that hourly rate. And you know what? I'm gonna drop this in the chat really quick. I don't know why.
Marie, I'm going to ask a question here.
Yes.
Just before we get too far away from the.
Yes, please.
My name is Syra. Hi, everyone. On the researching the annual salary piece that you were talking about. So I do community and economic development, and I'm also an artist, and I'm sort of blending these 2 things together. And when I'm thinking about like researching salaries for, it's almost like it's hard to find a salary for that.
Your job doesn't exist.
Right. So like would you then in that case suggest looking up annual salaries for the community economic development world and the arts world, and then making some kind of blending of the 2?
Absolutely. Do your research, be like, I can bring both of these things to the table, and, take your education, any certifications into account, and, look at both. Be like, okay, if I just did this, it would be that. If I just did that, it would be this. And then if you're putting them together, realize, and again, back to being confident, you're bringing 2 full-time jobs essentially together. So the people that are working with you, I'm not saying, you need to double the rates or anything, but there is a lot of value in that. So now as a coach, right? So I coach aspiring freelancers, but my background being in social, I can walk them through a lot of marketing, and I've done open businesses. So I have a lot of business opening experience. I bring that to the table, so yes, I'm a coach, but I'm also a business consultant. I'm also a social media consultant. I'm bringing that all under one roof for them. And of course, I want to keep that demographic in mind when I think of what they can afford. But at the same time, I want to stay fair to myself. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
And if it doesn't, you can say no. It's fine. I'll
keep. No, it does. It just brought up it brought up a second question.
Okay, no, go ahead, please.
Which was really around like, when you have so many different things to offer, which is the leading bucket, and then what are the support pieces? What you're saying is that you're a coach first, and then a business support agent, are kind of like the secondary. And so I guess, and maybe this is a question that I can just figure out on my own, but it's really like,
you can reach out to me too, please. I put my information in there, but yeah, okay. But no, kind of to answer that, I suppose, is I always pick the first, or like my main service, when people are like, okay, Marie, how do I introduce you? I have to know my audience. So today, being the coach for aspiring freelancers works. Being a freelance community manager or community builder works. Some days it's the founder of Convergence Co-working, because that's the way I want people to see me. So in your own head, you're going to have that one thing that you usually offer the most. So for example, like what would you think would be the most broad span thing that you would do for someone?
Oh my goodness. Probably working on an arts project that addresses some community development issue.
Okay, so community development and like art, we'd come up with a title for that.
But I also do like henna and jewelry making and a whole bunch of other stuff, you know, like,
absolutely.
And so
But your driving force, and this kind of goes back to the niche that you serve and the people that you want to serve, is figuring out what's the thing that will catch their eye, what will make them interested in you. When I say I'm a coach for aspiring freelancers, they're like, okay, people want to start businesses, you should probably talk to Marie. If you're a freelancer, you should probably talk to Marie. That's what you want to, that's a whole marketing thing, but like you want just that one main hook. And then once you got them on the hook, then you can explain all the other amazing things you can do for them.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the idea of being flexible with depending on who you're talking to that day. Cause you know.
Oh yeah, I've got bios for everything. I've got the coach bio. I don't really do social media work anymore, but I do have a bio for that. And then I have the, founder of Convergence Co-working, because co-working and business development, real estate essentially is a whole other world, and they don't give a crap that I coach. So pardon me, but they really just don't. They care about the real estate and the money making on that end. So very good. Awesome. Thank you for asking that. I hope that was helpful to everyone else in the group as well. I did drop my worksheet on how to set your rates in the chat. But the very last piece of that before I move on, which is really the bulk of this conversation, I think, because people ask me all the time, how much do I charge? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to say this once very, very loud, and this room is very large, so it'll save me selfishly a lot of time. So you create packages, you're writing down the list of services in each like bracket that you want to offer. And then you come up with how long those tasks would take you, and you use your hourly rate, and you hourly rate times amount, and then you get the full, and then you get that package, then you add all those together and you get the package rate, which might be, I don't know, say you start and it's like anywhere between $500 and $1,000. Like that's, the lowest is at 500, your highest is at 1,000. And of course you can, Adam, if you don't mind grabbing that last question, like it's in the chat, it'll show the PDF thing, and then I'm sorry, give me a second. Oh, okay. So you're gonna see all your packages and what those, like the hard rates, I guess, make your packages out to be. And then you go, okay, well, if they're gonna work on all of these things with me, like maybe I'll give them a little bit of a break, right? So if I've got someone I'm doing social, blogs, and emails for, my job's gonna be made easier. So maybe I'll, if the hard rate is like $550 or $540, like I'll quote it at $500, give them a little bit of a break off the top. But then that's a whole other thing, and thinking, are you going to have contracts, which we'll talk about in a minute? How long are your contracts going to be? Are you going to work month to month? Keeping all those things in mind, because your month to month clients, you probably want to have them on the higher end towards that hard rate. And then the clients who commit to work with you for 6 months to a year, you're going to give them a break because they're committing to you. You want to, have that reciprocation. I think that that's also really important. So questions
Marie,
about
we had a couple
that.
questions.
Yes.
We had a question from Barb and then Fastinia. Barb, what's your question?
I do see the hand raising thing now.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yay.
Yeah, hi. This is great. So you've been dropping some serious gems already. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question is, in terms of nonprofit world, like when you're contracting with nonprofits, because they tend to be on, for example, a lower type of budget. I mean, and so do you have any particular strategies when it comes to that? Or
so this is going to sound really bold, but that comes back to the confidence thing, right? If you have conversations with those not-for-profits or any potential client, I just ask. I say, do you have a budget for this? Or what's your budget? Or do you have a max for this? And hopefully, I'll just straight up ask that. I try to build a relationship with them before, to say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and create that value. Again, back to our title, create that value of yourself. So when you give them a rate, they're like, oh, that's it? Like, you want them to be like, wow, you have all this knowledge. You're only gonna charge me like, X hundreds of dollars to do that? okay, like it's a no-brainer. But sometimes if you hit them with the number first, they just think of the number. You want to give them the value first. Again, back to value-based pricing, right? So if you can and have the opportunity to ask what their, budget is, or if there's any way they could give you a range, or say, what if past projects of this nature, cost you, you can use that in your mind and say, okay, that's great. Of course, hopefully you have a good relationship with them, that they know that you're not going to be like, oh, well, that's their max budget, I'm going to charge them that. It's more of a, okay, that's your max budget, let me see how much I can get you within that. You want to give them the hardest or the best ROI. Like that's what everyone like always wants to worry about. And again, by providing that value. And I will sidebar this a little bit by saying, Buffalo is amazing, but we are a traditional city. And sometimes it's difficult to break down the walls that have been so strongly laid by, corporations, not-for-profits, just that typical like standard how it's been over the years. But with the pandemic and the way we work now, that's changing. And that's really a part of like my personal mission, is to change how we work in that sense, hiring a consultant or a freelancer like yourself, Barbara, hiring myself to provide the knowledge that they're looking for without, I guess, I don't know. It's hard to change their minds, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at. It's hard to change their minds, but you just kind of ease them into it and just present yourself as a valuable source. And then hopefully they're just like, wow, that really makes sense. So I don't know what your specific scenario is with that, but I would say just ask. And the worst they're going to say is like, no, I don't want to share that. And you're like, okay. And then you kind of go back to your hard rates and you're like, all right, well, this, without any information that you've given me, this is what I have, basically assumed, and this is how much that would cost you. If you're willing to share more information, I could probably work with you on that type of a price. But really, like, they're asking us to give them a lot, so in return, like, we should also receive. I think that that's important.
Thank you. That is
Did that help?
super helpful. Yes.
Did that help? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Festinia?
Okay. For some reason I'm on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all that you are saying. My challenge is really, people say that I charge too much. I'm not afraid to charge people, but they often say, oh, you're too expensive, especially here in Buffalo, because I work with people all over. And so the part of the challenge that I'm having, I have reorganized my business or repurposed it. And the areas that I cover are in the arts, politics, and church. But I also have an environmental background, working with environmentalists. And a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past, they know what I charge and they're cool with that. But the new people that I'm encountering, they ask that very question, what do you charge? And as soon as I tell them, then they, give me all these comments or whatever, and they'll say, well, just send me something and we'll talk about it. But to me, that's kind of a brush off, because often they look at it and they say, okay, we can go and pay somebody else this amount. So that would frustrate me, and I'd be like, okay. And I would just say fine, because I'd rather not work with someone who's going to
You've got the right attitude, and being a room of entrepreneurs here, I understand. It's very difficult. You don't want to be, I hope I can say this, sorry, but you don't want to be like too
tacky or something.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking. That's the word everybody knows the word I'm thinking of. You don't want to be too blah. But you have to hold yourself accountable. Like when you go to get your tires changed, or you go to buy new tires, do you think you can be like, oh, well, those are too expensive, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, bye.
Right.
We are a service and we're providing something tangible in return. So yes, it's frustrating and difficult when maybe there's someone you really want to work with and they're just like, no, that's too expensive, blah, 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 blah. So and you did everything in your power to show your value for them, and they just still don't see it. Unfortunately, we have to, and that comes with the imposter syndrome, we have to be okay with that, because ultimately, and this is like my hard bottom line rule, because letting that person walk, they will do one of two things: open the space for another client that does value you and can come into that space, or they will come back.
Well, my question to you is how to scale, because I decided to cast my net out further
Okay.
to go after federal level things. But I just feel like I haven't put a website out there for my business. And I feel like if I put a website out there, then people are like, you do too many things. And it just frustrates me because I'm looking at, I'll say like a J-Lo or some celebrity where they
Oh,
do
they have their
perfume
hands in
and they
many.
do,
I mean, yeah,
yes,
multiple streams of revenue. You need that. There's nothing wrong with that. The people who tell you you're doing too many things, you can just.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So how do you
You're welcome.
scale and how do you lead? I don't know. I know what I want to put out there, but I'm afraid that putting all those things out there would just make people think, oh, she's doing too much.
Kind of like what I was saying before. And I've read this in a lot of books, you guys, being mission driven. So if all the things that you do line with one mission, you're helping the same type of audience, you know, whether it's like super niche down or not, position your website on that, who you are, showcase who you are, what you bring to the table. Yeah, okay, focus on, like me. If you look at my website, you guys go to businessbeactive.com, it's going to say coach for aspiring freelancers, Marie this, it's going to have quotes, it's going to have testimonials on me as a freelancer or a freelance coach. But if you've seen me speak or listen to any of my podcasts or read them, you're going to go, and anyone with half a mind will be like, all right, well, she knows her business stuff. Like, let's reach out and see if she does this. And honestly, those are the only kind of people I want to work with. They're the ones that are like, okay, like, let's just like spark a conversation, because ultimately, right, our social media, our website, like that's what we want. We don't want them trying to figure out our whole game like on social media. Adam, did you mean to raise your hand?
Yeah, I actually had a question
Cool.
kind of in this vein. So what happens if we have a client who, have you ever had a client that you've had to fire? Can you talk about that?
Yes.
Where,
Can I talk about it in a minute? I want to make sure I cover. Did I answer the last question?
Yes, thank you so
Okay,
much.
cool. All right, great, you guys. I am, just for the sake of time, I'm going to move quickly through invoicing and creating agreements, because you can reach out to me separately. We can talk about all that stuff. Invoicing, I just wanted to plug that I love QuickBooks. I mean, I know, so Nakia works with Pathstone as well. Most CPAs or, you know, accountants, they're QuickBooks certified. There are a ton of tools out there like Bonsai or, you know, I don't even know, Square. There's a lot of invoicing tools out there that seem that they're great for everyone. And I don't say no to those, and I wouldn't advise you against them. But if you are looking to scale, kind of going back to the question, and I want to talk about that scaling thing, but I'm so sorry with the time, but please reach out to me because there's a lot of things with that. But I think ultimately my bottom line with the scaling thing is, yes, creating multiple streams of revenue. Yes, I'm the coach for aspiring freelancers. That's freelance work. I work with one social media client that like pays my bills. But then I do things like this. I get to speak to people who I just want to help you. So I do this, and then I'm opening, you know, a co-working space. I'm not saying you have to do 5 things to be successful, but they all align with the same type of people. And that's how essentially I would scale. So I hope kind of talking about that overviews it enough for everyone in the group, but please reach out to me separately so we can talk about you specifically scaling. I would love to help you. So back into creating agreements and invoices. So invoicing, definitely find the tool that works for you. I love using QuickBooks just because if you are scaling, all the accountants and CPAs are QuickBooks certified. Like they know how to use it. They can help you utilize it better. So as a business owner, being efficient, you want to utilize tools that other people can also utilize. So that's just like my little tidbit with that. Dr. Silas, I'm going to cover one thing, but please write your questions in there and then I'll definitely address them. So creating agreements, I say, do not work without an agreement. Seriously, like, can we just let that soak in? Do not work without an agreement. I kind of want to be like everybody with me, but we're not in person. But creating agreements, even like say it's a friend, family, your first client ever, whatever, at least have, if you have a phone conversation about, I'm showing my age with this one. Seriously, a phone conversation about services, what you're going to offer, your prices, always follow up with an email. always follow up with an email, reiterate what you talked about, reiterate where your pricing may start for that, or put your packages in there. Once they're like, yeah, like that package works really well for me, that's what I want to do, you're like, okay, great, let me get you an official agreement. Again, not an attorney, you know, anything like that. My agreement's like 2 pages. I had a business attorney review it when I first started, and then I've made adjustments over the years. That could be an entire session on its own. What should your agreement include? You know, what to look out for, you know, all kinds of things. So it's going to talk about invoicing in there. It'll talk about late fees. It'll talk about, it'll talk about like, if your client doesn't respond to the stuff that you need, like you still deserve to get paid, back to the value thing. And then my final point, which I'm going to look at the questions before I talk about it, but into scope creep, which if you've ever heard the term scope creep, it's like, this is what I want to do for you. And then they're like, oh, but can you like do this one thing? Or can you do this one thing? Or, you know, anything like that. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. And I think, Adam, that covers your question, right? Scope creep, when we talk about that. Okay, cool. I might have you re-ask it, but I'm going to read these questions. Oh, okay. Dr. Silas is going to connect with me offline. You guys are very sweet. Does anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question here before I jump into the chat ones? Oh, Ashante, I love that. Okay, very cool. Adam, please re-ask that question if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll ask a 2-parter. One, okay. When do I walk away from a negotiation that's based on price? And how do I fire a client, or what's your experience with firing a client?
Oh, that was it. Okay. Yes. And then do we want to get these 2 questions too, or can I answer this one first?
You can answer this and then we'll get
okay, cool. Thank you.
2. Sure.
I served tables. I can remember pretty well, but it's hard. So scope creep, if you do have people, you know, kind of asking you to do this one-off things, or, you know, you are in a negotiation on prices and you're like, this isn't going to be worth it. Like if it's that much trouble when you're trying to work together, like working together will be a nightmare. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's just the way that it is. When to know when to walk away, usually when you just start feeling uninspired by it, you know? So there's been plenty of people, I'll be in not negotiations, but they'll want to work with me. I'll say, okay, we'll have a couple calls. And then maybe they walk away for a while, then they come back and ask for another quote. And I was like, I really like you as a person. You're great. I will, you know, recommend you, all those things. But I'm like, you know, unfortunately, you know, I'm all booked up. You know, if something takes too long, or, you know, you decide that, you know, it's not worth your time, you know, you can also say, and I hope, Adam, this really answers your question, you know, say, you know, throughout our discussions, you know, I'm really interested in working with, or well, maybe don't lie, you know, throughout our discussions, you know, it's come to light that maybe I'm not the best fit for this project, but I have someone, ABC, who may work really well for you, because you're realizing that this personality match might not work, whatever. But I advise you, and this is another thing, like networking and having a referral source, like community, always have someone to offer, you know, don't walk away and giving them nothing. You know, I believe as good business people, you know, even if it's not your favorite encounter, as a person putting out into the universe, give them something, you know? So if I'm, you know, unfortunately, I'm no longer taking social media clients, but I've got 2 or 3 social media managers that are great. I'll let them do their own interview and negotiation process, and then they get to pick the one that works best. I don't want to pick them for them. I just give them options. So walking away, just like when you're not feeling it anymore, if I'm being honest, you guys, when you're not feeling it, walk away. And then as far as firing a client, unfortunately, I've had to do this quite a bit. And sometimes it's mutual, you know, and I want to make sure I get through everything. But, and Adam, do we have to end at like 12? Like, I might be like, I don't know if I can even, I have a 12 o'clock, but I want to answer everything. But so firing a client, let me do this really quickly. You can, and I highly advise a phone call, like we're all adults here, okay? Emails if needed, because sometimes people get heated or worked up, depending on your personality. You can always send an email. I'm not saying you can't. You know, I use the it's come to light, or, you know, I understand, you know, XYZ. I really just say that, you know, I don't know if we're, you know, really this, like, I don't know, it's like breaking up with someone, really. It's like, I don't know if we're really a good match anymore. It's really breaking up. I'm not gonna lie. When I've ever had to fire a client, I was like sad for 2 days, because I'm like, you know, we like dated, kind of, you know. So So just being honest about it. So whatever the feeling is that's going on, not overflowing them with anything, but just say, I realized that maybe. So I had a client once we were doing social media and she wanted me to do video editing. I didn't have video editing skills, so I don't have. And I said, I realized that this is a need of yours. I'm happy to continue working on the social media aspect, and you'll like this outcome. But I said, as far as a video editor, I have connections with video editors, or, if you hire your own, I'm happy to work in conjunction with them. But my scope, and back to the scope creep, my scope is organizing your content, captioning it and scheduling it and doing your analytics. Like, that's my scope. That's what I'm doing. If there's anything outside of that, then either, one of two things, we can find someone, or, maybe you work with someone who can do all of those things. So I thought, to be honest, I thought she was going to walk away. I thought like she wanted one person, do whatever. And she's like, okay, like that makes sense. All right, sounds good. Like, let's just do the social that as you discussed previously. And I was like, okay, sweet. Like, it worked out really well. So hopefully that example was good. And again, keeping it professional. So really just to hit the last thing I'm going to talk about, then we can do straight questions, is an example like that. Sometimes you have to have conversations with your clients that you don't want to have, or sometimes they're frustrating you. Sometimes I've been yelled at before by doing, I was doing something that I was asked of by, like, say, the right hand of the person who owned the company. The right hand asked me to do it. And I was told, like, you can do whatever they tell you to do. I'm like, okay. So I did it. And then, like, there was a big thing and they got all upset. And ultimately I lost that client, but I was totally okay with it, because I literally got yelled at 11 o'clock at night after I put my children to sleep. Like, why was this posted? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm not trying to shed myself like on a light where I'm not a good social media manager, like didn't handle the scenario well. But one, I didn't want to answer the call, but I did, because I knew that they wouldn't stop calling. But then two, I was like, okay, I was given permission to listen to this person. I followed those directions exactly. And then I was being reprimanded for the thing that I did. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, So a couple days later, I'm like, you know what? Mutually, we both decided we weren't a good fit for whatever reason. They had their reasons and I had mine, AKA I don't like to be yelled at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not, as an independent contractor, freelancer, whatever, like, you are a business, you are not an employee. And that's something that I think all of us need to band together and, again, be confident and know that, like, we're your partners. Our clients are our partners. They're not our employees. So I want to only work with the people who understand and believe that and are, like, happy with it. So not to be super forward on that. And I hope that was okay, Adam. But that was just like a couple examples.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you.
Hope that was all right. I don't mean to vent.
Yeah,
those are very real scenarios.
No, that was good. Thank you.
But okay, cool. We got 10 and then 10. We got 10 minutes for questions. Really, just keep it professional. Yeah. Don't swear at people. Don't yell at people. If you need a day or two, like, just don't respond. Just don't respond. Don't do anything that's gonna affect you or your business moving forward, because we are all just trying to do what we can. So.
Yeah. No, it looks like we have two questions, two hands up. Soror Kiera Renee, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Hello, my name is Kiera. I've been in business for 6 years now. I do marketing and business development. My question is, when I kind of
Soror, we're having a really hard time hearing you. I'm not sure if you're moving around or anything.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, that's better. Thank you so much.
Okie dokie. So sorry, but yes, so I've been in business for 6 years, and I developed a new skill set when I got my master's degree in media arts and technology, and I increased my prices. But my grandfather clients were kind of upset that I kind of increased my process. So I did send them an email explaining, hey, my business is reorganizing, we're redeveloping, and this is the price. And I did suggest other people in the profession that I felt that they needed. So I just wanted to, my question is, when is it okay to transition those grandfather clients, or just leave them alone? Don't even try to kind of acclimate them to your new business.
I mean, I 100%. I mean, if you can keep a good client that supported you since the beginning, I say go for it, because it's just like I hate to keep doing this, but it's like a relationship, you guys. It is a relationship. if there's, I had clients that worked with me when I first started out and my packages were like so low. And then, I know I couldn't jump them from 150 to 400 a month. Like, I know I couldn't do that, but like maybe over a year I bumped them to 50, and over another year, maybe I bumped them another 50 because they knew I was worth more, because over the years I would get better. And another thing, kind of going back to agreements, you guys, give yourself raises. I just want to say that, we can talk about it later, but give yourself raises every year. Raise your rates. You've gained one more year of experience. You've gained more value with the people you are working with. They should be paying you more. It doesn't have to be a lot, but to answer your question, Sor, try if you feel, well, try if you want to. If the clients that you have line up with what you're trying to do and you think they'll be valuable clients to you moving forward, yes, try to merge them over. If you think you're pivoting too much and maybe it won't be a good fit anymore, then absolutely refer them to someone else. So I think you're on the 100% right track. Those are my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Averin, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not.
Averin.
Averin. Okay. You're
so
close.
You're good. So my question is revolving around agreements. And so I do a lot of work in government consulting with civil society organizations. And I also have a skill set in multimedia and social media development. So I'm running into an issue maintaining clients because, again, I like going through that process of making sure that all the agreements are laid out, whether it be an initial letter of intent, moving that into a MOU, and then, laying out the contract on how long I'm going to be working with that company. And so I usually get to that point, that contract point, and once that contract point comes, it's kind of like, okay, now I want to back out because I feel like you're being overpriced, and I want to take everything that we developed and take it to another company and have it for half the price.
Oh, dang. Yeah,
So
no, I don't give anybody anything without money. Yeah.
Well, it's more conceptual than anything on
But still,
paper.
your concept is incredibly valuable. I know that in some places you have to pitch a general idea.
Right.
But what my dad would say is, don't give away the farm. Fun fact, I actually grew up on a farm. So so yes, you have to give them a little to give them, what they're looking for. But that happens sometimes, and I'm just gonna say it, like, it just sucks. It sucks because sometimes you have to do that in a proposal process, especially in government contracts, and they go and they get it for less elsewhere. And I wish I had a better answer for you, because sometimes it just really sucks, or stinks. Yeah, because I tell my children you can't say sucks. But that's really tough. I feel bad. I really wish I had a better answer. And I would say maybe just do a couple things. See what you can scale back by still giving them their answers and giving them their values. But then as far as your agreements and anything like that, your processes, make it, if you can, and we can talk about this offline, make it a little more deliverable. So their first engagement with you, say that's your agreement with them and their payment, then they're paying you and they're in either a contract or an agreement with you for anything. And then at that point, there would be repercussions if they did what they've done to you. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
if you're able to do that, I would do that. And then, so when I work with clients, I'll send them an email and say, okay, these are my prices. So they can't be like, oh no, your prices are too high. Like, I gave you that in an email. It wasn't even an agreement. I'm like, these are my prices and what we're going to work on. And they're like, okay, great. That's good. So when I send them that agreement, they're not surprised. And that agreement it's only a couple pages. So if there's maybe a way, maybe work with an attorney or something, see if you can consolidate some of your agreements so they don't seem so heavy. But again, it's heavily on the perception of the person you're trying to work with too. So there's a few factors in that. I hope the pieces of answers I gave you are helpful.
Yeah, and it's not, because everybody who comes in, they know my price points on the services. It's more or less the allocation of services, you know, it adds up.
It does,
And
but that's
so,
your
you
value.
know,
And for you to be
it,
confident to do it, like that's half the battle. And it's unfortunate that sometimes they just lose you, but they lose you. You're not losing them.
oh no,
I think,
I agree. You know, and I'm seeing a couple of projects of people that I work with utterly fail because they didn't understand the full scope of the marketing plan. And so, you know, when they go out and pitch it, it becomes incoherent, and then they want to come back after the fact.
Oh, they always come back, but the price
And
goes
it's
up.
like, I don't want to work with you.
Exactly, right. So the price either goes up, so the price goes up, or you're not available anymore. It's really that
Yeah,
simple. So I mean,
yeah.
I think you're doing a great job. I really do. So I want to, so Alicia's iPhone asked about developing a program for beauty professionals, 0 to 3 years of field experience. Okay. Some services. Okay. And Alicia, if you don't mind coming off mute and talking about this a little bit, some services call for you to outsource. So sending an email, pricing something that would only take a couple minutes. Alicia, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm not exactly sure what you're doing with that, but if it has anything to do with connecting people within your network or a resource that you have that's of your value, and I don't know, do you invoice for this separately, or is it a part of like your package or your value that you offer, or?
Yeah, outsourcing will be a part of the package.
Okay.
But as I'm developing this program, I'm listing the scope of services which each service is worth. So then I get to the outsourcing area and I don't know exactly how to price that. If it's as simple as sending out an email.
Okay, and you're not managing the relationship after that, like you're not doing any white label. Okay, I hope this example helps you. So so when I'm coaching aspiring freelancers, a part of my package is that I will connect them. I give a tangible number. I'm like, I'll connect you with at least 3 people, either in your field or in relation to your field, that you can connect with. I want to add value to their package. So, you know, I'm coaching them, I'm working with them, but I'm also handing them people within my circle that I know are good and can either be a client or refer them more clients. And I include it in the packages. So if it's already in a package, like maybe you just like add X amount of dollars for your connections. Like you've worked hard to connect with certain people and you've worked hard to have them kind of like, you know, at your fingertips. Like, you know, a lot of people don't have Channel 7 and the Hamburg Sun and whoever like at their fingertips. But if there's someone I know that wants, you know, to reach out to them, I'm like, yeah, I've got them. And like most times I don't charge for it, but if it were a part of a package, you best believe I would have it in there.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Yes.
And if it doesn't, like I said, you guys, like call me out. Be like, no, that didn't help at all. Try again. And I'm like, okay,
yes. I guess
again.
I was just trying to figure out the value of that email sent to the external partner.
Well, so maybe just pat it into your pricing, but then do your due diligence as far as following up to see moving forward with other clients if that is, you know, what the value of it is, right? So you've connected them and then be like, hey, how did it go? Like, oh, have you gotten anything out of it? There's a couple people I've connected and they like straight up just do business together all the time. They're doing referral business like crazy and they wouldn't have that without me. So I see that as a tremendous value. So moving forward, working with my clients, I add that into my packages and I know that I'm being rewarded in one way or another, you know, by providing that service to them, just like opening my community, my network to them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, everyone, please, I did drop my contact information in here. And Dr. Silas, I'm so sorry we didn't get to you. Please reach out to me because I feel like you have some really good questions. And
I've already emailed you.
Oh, okay, cool. It's in my inbox. All right, and that's something like with Adam, if I feel like it's worth a follow-up, Adam and I, we can do like a follow-up, like maybe like a little transcript or something of like commonly asked questions here, and we can send it to everybody.
Sure. So
that would be cool. I'm gonna repost my contact information. You can follow me on Instagram, like whatever works. Where did I put my name?
What's your handle on Instagram, Marie? Is it the at Biz Beactive?
Yep, at Biz Beactive, yeah. And then it's also just Marie Rachelle with an underscore at the end. But if you find my business account, you'll find me everywhere else. That's what I mean. Again, going back to that thing with, I just want to hook you once. I don't care if you follow my business account, my personal account. a co-working account, because either way, you'll find everything else eventually if you keep looking. So
Wonderful.
that's the hook.
Awesome.
You guys were so great. I hope this was good. I hope you loved it.
Yeah, Marie, thank you so much. This was wonderful. This was a very full hour, which is always refreshing, and everybody engaged, which was awesome. That's what we look for with these. So thank you so much for coming and giving us some knowledge and some education and answering all of our questions. And
I'm gonna make sure I
anybody who
get
has
everyone on a screenshot here. So I'm gonna screenshot a couple times and make sure that I can connect with you all, because I really do. This was great. This is one of the better sessions
Sure.
I've had. And again, like Adam said, you guys engaged. It was amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will, I'm sure we will have you back. And guys, please connect with Marie. You have her contact information in the chat. Jahida just dropped that. Marie has dropped it. So go in there and find her, connect with her. I follow her on Instagram. So a lot of awesome knowledge and just a great community to be a part of. Do that. And with that, I'm going to thank Marie again. And I'm going to remind you guys that She Means Business registration is open.
Yes,
starts
please
March
sign
30th.
up for that. I'm so excited. I'll be there too.
Yeah.
So
It'll be great. It's going to be a great cohort. Beyond Profit is right in the meat of that. So if you're part of nonprofit, remember Tuesday at 5:30, we're going to be talking about teams. And we just had a brand new episode of the podcast drop yesterday, or Wednesday rather. And that was with serial entrepreneur Dan Abatoy. So you
I
get to
love
hear
him.
from
Oh,
Dan.
Dan is the best, you guys.
It's wonderful.
Dan.
Yeah. So please,
Dan and I partner
please.
together. So
Oh, well, small world, big state,
Yep.
small world.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
so check that out, guys. Check out the Profit and Loss podcast from Pathstone, and that's in the chat right now. Jahida just dropped it in the chat, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks for the next Friday forum. Thanks so much, guys. And Marie, thank you so much.
Awesome. I'm so excited to connect with you all. Please reach out, check out some stuff, and however I can help, I'll do that. So thank you again. Thanks, Adam.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Jahida, for doing everything behind the scenes. And
No.
so I just have to talk.
You're always like, so thank you. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Wear your mask. Wash your hands.